The Uncontrollables. Outrageous? Sometimes. Thoughtful? Maybe. Offensive? Probably. Fabulous? Always. Alright, hi everybody. This is episode 6 of The Uncontrollables. I think it's 6. Is it 6?
I think we're number 6.
Yeah, it's at 6. Yeah, we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff tonight. Also, for any of you guys watching, we are live streaming this on Google and YouTube and the interwebs. Let's put it that way.
So you can see our ugly
If anyone's
faces.
actually watching this, I'm sorry that you're doing that. You can leave at any time. But with me tonight, I have, as always, Josh Featherstone.
Good evening.
And we also have with us Troy Hill.
Greetings.
Evening, Troy.
Now, who are you?
I don't know. Who am I?
Like, what do you do as a living? Are you just some slob that I invited on here because I had nobody else?
I am a jack of all trades, do lots of stuff. Mainly I write Fuzzy Liberty, a blog about the Libertarian Tea Party movement. I know those two don't go together well right now.
What? Is that a thing?
I will say the Libertarian Tea Party movement, the origins were well intended, similar.
Well, there's always been good intentions all over the place, and that's usually how we end up with government. But so yeah, that's obviously something we're going to touch on tonight is a little bit of the Tea Party and those crazy people and why you'd want to be called a Tea Party and things like that. We're also going to talk about Mike Pence being the world's biggest douchebag and wanting to take Indiana back about 30 years, 40 years.
Oh, we've got to really set the bar high. Not only do we need to lead the Midwest in being total douchebags, but we want to set the example for the rest of the country. We want to set the example for other people when it comes to douchebaggery.
I think we'll do that. And basically what we're talking about is Mike Pence is helping push a new thing here in Indiana, not necessarily statewide, but it will be statewide, but it's not necessarily new statewide, and giving people harsher punishments for lower levels of pot possession. Not just pot either, all kinds of substances. And the bill itself is, and we're not going to actually talk about the bill or go into that because it's going to pass, so it's kind of pointless to talk about at this point. We're just kind of forewarning you, is that a lot of punishments are going to be a lot harsher, and I want to say longer prison sentences, and just a lot more crap from the prison industrial complex here in Indiana. Let's see here. What else can we talk about? We can talk about all kinds of things. Well, Obama, the good news is that he's going to give back, 5% of his salary?
What a joke. Yeah.
5% of his $400,000 salary. He's going to give 5% back.
Well, he's got to step in there and act like, he's one of the common man, and he's suffering along with the rest of us. What is that weird clicking sound that I keep hearing in the background, Maya?
I'm very afraid because if any of you watching can see, you can't see, but we're sitting here recording in my house, and in my living room are a corner couch and a big desk with a whole bunch of computer equipment on it. And right now, Chris Spangle is sitting at my desk doing something. He's typing a lot. I left all of my profiles open, everything. So I'm sort of afraid of what is happening to my online persona right now. Oh, and there's an evil laugh.
Let me just point.
Wishing everybody a good day. Oh no!
Let me just go ahead and.
People are gonna think I'm gonna commit suicide later. I'm being nice.
So let me get this straight. Spangle gets a hold of your keyboard, and you're worried about what people may think of you.
There's things about Spangle you guys just don't know. All right, so I guess we can actually get to a topic now. Okay, so I guess the main point is let's talk a little bit about the Tea Party. Well, specifically in Indiana, because every state's going to have a different Tea Party, and different parts of the state are going to have different Tea Parties, and it's kind of like Occupy and everything else we've talked about thus far on this show, is that it all depends on where you're at and what group of people you're with, what a label means to a group anyway. So give us a basic rundown of what the Tea Party's like in this state, Troy.
As of 2009 when it began, or where it is currently?
Give us a very broad historical background to the Tea Party.
As you know, we had a strong libertarian influence starting the Tea Party in 2007, but it really did not kick off and gain national attention until 2009 after Obama was elected and the Rick Santelli rant went viral and the tax day tea parties kicked off. So here in Indiana, we had those tax day tea parties scattered throughout the state, and almost everywhere they were tried, they exceeded expectations. Here in Indianapolis, we were expecting maybe 1,000, 1,500 people, and photographically, I can prove about 6,000. Yeah, 6,000 people were on the lawn of the State House that day. From that point, it grew and then kind of sloped off after the 2010 elections. And then as 2012 came in, we saw the religious right really start to take precedent or prominence in both the GOP and the Tea Party. And that's where it really started to split off. And we saw Rick Santorum swell in popularity, but doing so brought out the schism between the libertarian movement within the Republican Party as well as the Tea Party itself. It really created two camps going back and forth at each other in the movement as well as the GOP.
Wait, are you saying that the religious right screwed things up again?
Let's say that the religious right and the libertarians don't agree on everything.
Who owns the Tea Party now? Owns, you know what I'm saying. Who is what is the directive of the Tea Party? Who is their leadership?
There is no direct leadership within Indiana. Each group is local and separate to itself. So you're going to have a different flavor as you move throughout Indiana. Kosciuszko County is going to be more or less religious right in the extreme. Indianapolis is going to be probably a little more on the secular side just because of a broader base and dealing with more of a Democrat demographic that it's growing out of. As you're moving from county to county to county, you're going to see a different flavor in each one. There's no set leadership. Even with the group that I was with in 2009 that grew, split, became both the Indianapolis Tea Party as well as the Indiana Tea Party, which is not a membership organization. There's not a direct leadership that communicates with everybody across the state.
So they're not really organized or centralized or anything. They just kind of use it as a label to get new members, right?
Not exactly, but yeah, that's a...
Well, what's the purpose of the Tea Party? What's their goals? What's their values? What do they base anything on?
When the Tea Party here in Indianapolis was started, we had a mission statement meeting where we were trying to figure out what we stood for, and it was basically lower taxation, limited government, and a constitutional government. So the limited taxation was back to the Boston Tea Party theme, but it was really just fiscal responsibility. Stop spending us into oblivion.
Do you think you are a 2009 Tea Partier or a 2013 Tea Partier?
At this point, the Tea Party has to grow up and figure out whether it's going to be just an arm of the religious right, or is it going back to its core principles of limited government, constitutional government, and keeping the freedoms and liberties of everybody at the forefront.
I will say the Tea Party is an organization that when it first started popping up, I looked at and I respected their ideals quite a bit. I looked at them and said, hey, there's a group that I think that I could support, and that didn't last very long. Once again, it comes to the religious right side of things. It seemed like, as a libertarian, what the Tea Party started as seemed like a very libertarian organization. And then, it's turned into today where I think whether or not you're a libertarian or you're a Democrat or you're basically anyone outside of the Tea Party directly, you look into them and you think the religious right side of things. Even though maybe different counties may have their own leadership and may be heading down different paths, I think the general social attitude towards the Tea Party isn't the limited government aspect; it's the religious right aspect. And is that where the Tea Party wants to go? I know you said that that's a decision they have to make. How do they get there? Do the counties start getting together and start forming a statewide organization that has a platform to them, or how can the Tea Party become what it wants to be?
It's really coming back to the local membership, let me use my friend Monica's group up in Kosciuszko County. She's got a group up there that places the religious aspect first and foremost in their credo.
So much so that I've seen Monica make statements, this isn't going to be a direct quote, but make statements that says if you support equality under the law, as in gay marriage, or you do any kind of supporting of the LGBT community, you cannot at the same time support freedom and liberty. So let's put some context to that real quick, but continue.
Okay, well, let's also remember Monica speaks for herself as well as occasionally being the spokesman for her party. So I want to make sure that those are in context as to which hat she was wearing. The groups here in Indianapolis have, like I said, a little more secular flavor to them, although the individual membership does have a strong religious right aspect to it because of drawing from the conservative base.
How does the religious right aspect to it tie in with its origins of limited government? Do you think that the two can be hand in hand, or do you think that they are somewhat mutually exclusive of each other?
It depends on whether they go down a Jeffersonian road or look more for the Rick Santorum road. If they're Jeffersonian, then you've got the nice ideas that Jefferson espoused in the Virginia statute for religious freedom that everybody forgets about. It's why do we have religion impacting government and government trying to do the bidding of religion? Religion is an individual choice and must be protected as a source of liberty.
Oh, that's so dry. Long pause. Okay, so back to the Tea Party and what it's doing and what I've seen from it. I mean, I tried to help really build up some Tea Parties locally, and I really tried to get involved with them. At the same time, I was getting involved with the Libertarian Party, and it was sad. These people, they would come up to a tiny little, an incline in a hill, and they'd turn around and give up and say, it's too hard, we can't do that. I had a lot of people really wanting to support the Libertarian Party, and they gave up the first time they thought it was going to be difficult or hard. They just wanted an easy route, and then I noticed the membership kept getting older and older and older, and then it was more about, we got to save Medicare and Medicaid, we got to end welfare, and so, but helping with different Tea Parties, noticing that they just gave up, and they didn't want to really try too hard, and they're just like, okay, well, we're going to have to change the GOP from the inside. And that's the only message I've heard consistently with any Tea Party across the country, is that we have to influence the GOP, and that's about it. They've just become a campaign fundraising work group for the GOP, and we saw that during the last election cycle for Murdoch and Pence.
Well, let's take a look at the difference between those who refused to support Ron Paul from the Tea Party movement, who are now lining up behind his son, Rand Paul. As libertarians, do you guys see much of a difference between father and son there? Is there a reason Tea Partiers would love one and not the other?
Well, I would say Ron Paul was very fire and brimstone to the government type thing. I mean, just like, end it all, we're going to tear this down. And he was very passionate, very fiery, wanted to end everything. Where you see a lot of people supporting Rand over him is that a lot of his statements and some of the things he said in some of his different speeches and stuff have been a little bit more catering to religious people. And it's also
Rand's
where
a little bit more willing, I think, on the compromise side of things.
Yeah, and
Ron Paul, they say, he had the crazy uncle idea of Ron Paul. He was a little older. You look at Rand, and it goes a little bit more.
He can win. They think he's a winner, so of course they'll back him. Because like I said earlier, the Tea Party's not a people willing to put up a fight. They're willing just to back whoever they think they like a little bit better that they think can win. I don't see them being real hardcore, we got to go all out, live free or die. That's not something you can say about the Tea Party like libertarians, that libertarians are like, we're probably going to lose, but we're going to fight anyways. Tea Party, we're not going to fight that battle because we probably can't win it, so we're going to go pick on this one over here.
Now, I see a lot of difference in the early Tea Party to the Tea Party of today. And that comes back to the Ron Paul, Rand Paul issues, where you've got, a Tea Party that knew they were up against the wall in 2009. They had Democrats controlling both houses and the White House. Obamacare could have been passed immediately, and they were able to delay.
Well, okay. Well, you're saying the Tea Party's supposed to support and everything else. Why don't they work more and support more of the Libertarian Party?
Because the Libertarian Party has not proven that they can win on a national scale yet.
So they're only going to back winners. You're telling me that the Tea Party's so dumb, and I'm going to say this honestly, I honestly think they're this dumb, is that they can't see if they took all their numbers, all their resources and power, and supported the Libertarian Party, they could win? Because I did this specifically. I pointed this out to a pretty well-ran, 50, 60 members every single meeting in just a county. And I was managing a candidate's race out there for mayor. They never helped me once. We had the candidate there. They said, we really like him. We like him over the other guy. Everything else, they never lifted a finger, and they could have had my guy win. And they're now, ever since the other guy won, the Republican won, who they supported towards the end, they've done nothing but complain about his policy and like what he's done, everything else. They could have supported us. They didn't. And I've seen that with a lot of Tea Party groups I used to try to talk to, is that they don't want to support the Libertarian Party. They want to support winners. But they don't realize that if they took all of their resources and people and backed the Libertarian Party, we would crush the GOP.
The main issue I'm seeing in the Tea Party's supporting Libertarian candidates is if they will kowtow to the social conservative program, they'll gladly support them, provided there's no better candidate on the Republican side.
So
unless we talk about banning the faggots from society and tearing them down, and those dirty faggots, we need to lock them up and put them in cages. And we can't have these little potheads run around because pot was banned in the Bible somewhere. I think it was in Leviticus or Levi, furniture. So, unless we kowtow to all that,
which chapter of Levi furniture was that?
I don't know.
I think Maya's talking about the verse that says, "When a man lays with a man, they shall be stoned."
No.
Oh, yes, that was it. So,
yeah.
So before you can have gay sex, you got to toke up.
I'm down for that. Can we put that in the law?
All right.
I like it. I like religious law.
See, I think that's been misinterpreted by many churches. I think that they were throwing rocks. Those guys just didn't read.
Yeah. No, so you're basically saying, and that's what I think, but you're a lot more involved with them. I watch your huge debates and conversations you have on Facebook and places that you try to talk to these people in a rational sense, and they go off the deep end saying, you're a horrible person, you don't support freedom or limited government because you're going to allow the faggots to run wild, and these people are going to smoke leaves. Oh, my God. And how do you think we could ever corral maybe some of their supporters, or maybe wake them up to how stupid they are?
The biggest challenge is trying to get the religious right to separate themselves from what I call the religious nationalist. And the religious nationalist is a movement that a lot of people like Chris Rada on the left, she wrote a book called Liars for Jesus. She writes a blog, and I can't remember where it's parked right now, but she has taken on David Barton, Glenn Beck's favorite little historian.
Yeah.
The idea is that Christian nationalist, or if you go across the globe, religious nationalist, because they use religion as a means to take over the state. That is their justification for why they have to have power within the state and control everyone's lives. Because God set our religion up as the primary reason for this country's existence. You see it across the Middle East with sectors of radical Islam, and you see it here with some sectors of the religious right pushing that America is a Christian nation, therefore Christianity is the religion that the government must bend to and must institute its policies.
So the Tea Party isn't really a small government supporting entity. It's a Christian Sharia law entity. It's no different than the Muslim Brotherhood, except in their actions and their member makeup.
To say the Tea Party is, not quite. To say members of the Tea Party wanting to move it that way, yes, that's probably accurate.
Where's it going to end up? I mean, as an outsider, again, it appears like the Tea Party is going further and further and further towards a religious right on a nearly daily basis. You talked about the Tea Party needing to find out where it's going to be and how they're going to identify themselves. Does the Tea Party have any chance of being anything but a religious right organization?
It depends on whether or not they can embrace the small government role and move that idea to the forefront in front of the religious angle. If they can make it so that religious liberty is the choice that they protect instead of religion over liberty, yes, they can get there. But as long as they have the idea that our religion is the reason the country exists, therefore our religion must be exalted above all others, then there's a problem, and they're going to keep bumping up against the same wall they always have in the religious right, in that they end up losing mainstream conservative to, we'll call them Republicans, the so-called libertarian lights. Those go away.
So Tea Party's been around for 3.5, 4 years now.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it move from its origins to where it is today. In another 3.5 or 4 years, where do you think the Tea Party is going to be?
It's probably either going to be just another offshoot of whatever group Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee have up and running, or it's probably going to die and fade away and just get absorbed by the GOP. The Karl Rove movement within the GOP will take it over, and just, everybody will drift away like they did before. They'll get fed up and go away.
So not much of a chance of heading back towards the origins, more of either further religious right or just completely obsolete and dissolves.
Unless there's a strong movement with Rand Paul groups that are starting to pay attention to what he's saying, if the liberty side of that can take hold and push and get the religious side tamped back down and get them to start paying more attention to the liberty side of the equation, yes, Tea Party can survive. If it just becomes another Rick Santorum organization, no. It's just the media is going to eat it alive.
So hopefully they just disappear and go away. Because, like I said, I haven't seen them really do anything except support the GOP and create, and they've done some good for us as far as creating divides and everything else. Look at what they did to the Senate race here with Murdoch in the primaries. They spent a lot of money and manpower on that. But do you see them ever trying to say support the Constitution Party, who is, if none of you have ever heard about it, look it up and look at what they say they stand for? They basically, one of their tenets is they want the government to ban porn.
The Constitution Party is an interesting beast. I came from the underbelly of the two-party system, and I spent most of my years as a Republican, and
Boo hiss.
Yeah, I agree, boo hiss, and when I started to realize that I wasn't a Republican anymore, and what I first started doing was exploring the third parties. And so I got out there and I just started hitting their websites, reading their platforms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And boy, the Constitution Party, for what you think they would be based on their name and what they really are and what they really stand for, they are kind of the not Constitution Party.
No, they'd like to get their hands on the Constitution because, like we've said before, the Constitution means absolutely nothing because it can be changed to say whatever you want it to say. So they could amend the Constitution to say there is now an official religion of the country, and if you don't follow it, we're gonna behead you or give you to the homos or something. I don't know.
You mean like North Carolina's in the process of doing?
I thought you were going to say North Korea, but you said basically the same thing.
Same thing, same people. So no, we'll tie that into that. What do you think about that? What the guys in North Korea do? Or I can't stop now.
One of those North Carolina sounds.
North Carolina decided that the ACLU was interfering in their prayer before meetings a little too much, and decided that they were going to use the 10th Amendment as the reason for allowing the state to pick its own state religion. So my thought is, have they never read the as I
The
mentioned
amendment's
before.
high in lower number than the 10th?
No, I was going back to the Virginia statute for religious freedom, and we could get into the letter to the Danbury Baptist, but the Tea Party hates that letter. They assume it's been taken well out of context by the courts.
So basically, these rejects in North Carolina, not Korea, Carolina, want to install a state-sponsored religion?
So that they can have the prayer that they want before their meetings.
All right. Now, this is a problem I've always had with the. I'm a big 10th Amendment guy. I'm a big nullify guy. If the Constitution at the federal level doesn't allow them to do it, and the federal government tries to do it, and states want to say, no, you're exceeding your bounds, I say states go for it. But in this particular case, you're talking about, because of the 10th Amendment, we can establish our own state religion despite what the First Amendment says. How do they, what are they just picking and choosing their amendments that they're going to pay attention to?
I'm not sure what their thought is, but using the nullify movement makes sense in a roundabout way. I wouldn't go there, though, to begin with, because Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. The court has decided that those amendments apply to the states as well, because they are inalienable rights, and they are ours, not the state or the federal government's to control.
But then they always leave out one person in those nullified talks and the 10th Amendment states' rights talk. They always leave out the good old individual. I mean, I remember talking to Tea Parties, and maybe you can expand on this a little bit more, about they always talk about states' rights, how it's a states issue, so we can legislate away individual freedom on a state basis because that's the states' rights. And have you heard stuff like that coming out of the Tea Party where they basically think it's free go and free reign to do whatever they want on a state level?
Probably the best example is DOMA. They want to keep the federal government out of the debate on what marriage should be, as long as the state agrees with them on what it should be.
So they fully agree with statism and the government defining religious law.
Members of the religious aspect of the Tea Party, from what I've seen, yes, that's an accurate statement.
Okay, well, what's with Indiana? You keep making that split to provide proper context to protect the Tea Party. I understand that. But who do you think has the loudest voice and the most followers?
In Indiana, the loudest voice, anywhere, is really those with the strongest convictions that they're trying to push. In any situation here in the Libertarian Party in Indiana.
Well, no, I mean, specifically, what do you think of the Indiana Tea Party, who has the loudest voice?
Loudest voice here in Indiana is probably going to be the religious right, as long as the issue has any kind of moral implications. Once you get outside of the moral implications, it goes back to whoever's got the strongest connection. You get tax, the governor's tax plan, give it a tax cut or tax refund to everybody. That's not a moralistic religious issue, therefore the voices are about equal.
So, like I said, I've talked about Anon and Occupy and the Libertarian Party on this show. We're talking about the Tea Party. It's an interesting thing to see all these different groups, and the Tea Party is a little bit more beloved, a little bit more liked amongst the peoples, unless you're on like CNN and they just hate them and they call them whack jobs or whatever. But you see all this, and then you see Occupy, who's just hated by like everybody, and then you see Anon. Well, I think that the short time period those two groups have been around and growing have accomplished more than the Tea Party could ever imagine accomplishing. And I'd rather side with Occupy and Anon way before Tea Party at this point, from what I've seen and just how they act. And plus, I don't like blue hairs. I'm sorry if there's anybody that's old listening to this, but old people just, come on, you screwed up for, 60 years of your life, and now you're passionate. They're going to take your Medicare and Medicaid and... oh my God, you won't have 30 prescriptions to take a day. Screw you, go away. But, yeah, so it's kind of it's an interesting take that there's all these different groups out there, and none of them back the Libertarian Party. And you've worked with this, and you were on Rupert's campaign with me. And
yes.
I'm surprised you're not wearing your tie-dye. I know you have probably 30 of them at home like the rest of us do. But you worked on the campaign with us, and you were media director, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you did a lot of our photography and everything else when they weren't forcing me to do it when I'm not a photographer. And you still work with him and everything, so you've been involved with the Libertarian Party, and it's amazing to think that there's all these groups, and the Occupy's been backing the Democrats, the same old, same old. The Tea Party's backing the GOP, same old, same old. And then here we are as the Libertarian Party just going, what the hell? Why are you guys just ignoring us? If we had Occupy and the Tea Party both supporting the Libertarian Party, we'd win every single election. What is there one thing you think you could ever do to make them, the two groups, come together, or do you think it would be suicide to support one group or the other because we completely lose the other ones?
I think you'd probably lose the other one. The Libertarian Party's in a good position, as you know from our campaign with Rupert. We drew some of the Occupy folks in because the message of liberty resonated with them. Coming out of the left side like Rupert did on his own personal political stance, foot in each side, but he leaned leftward. But once he saw liberty as the primary issue and how to help people by teaching them to help themselves, he was able to grow into a libertarian role. To get that out of the Tea Party as well, you've got to find the people that do not place religion ahead of their own liberty and the liberty of everybody else. And that's where on our Fuzzy Liberty blog, I've got a fellow writer who's an evangelical Christian who's also libertarian now, back in your home county out east of Indianapolis here.
Hancock County. The only town in it's Greenfield, as we call it, Green-tucky.
There's another town or two in there. Anyways.
No, there's not.
Yeah. Anyways, my fellow writer, Andy, is coming at it from a religious evangelical perspective, as we've got our own evangelicals here in the Libertarian Party. But when they place other people's liberty in front of their religion's ability to influence that person, then we can see the growth of liberty and the Libertarian Party.
Earlier, you, Maya, made a comment about what Anon or Occupy has accomplished versus what you felt the Tea Party has accomplished. The Tea Party is considered, good or bad, a pretty powerful organization across the nation. It's an organization that the public looks in at and thinks that they've got some strings they pull. What do you think that the Tea Party has accomplished?
Tea Party really caused the Congress and the president in 2009 to do a gut check and to slow down the progressive agenda that we were looking at after the defeat of McCain and all the GOP coattails that he had. Probably would have been slightly different under McCain, but again, it was just another growth of the state. So we were able to slow down that growth and get to where we could shift one house of Congress dramatically back over to the GOP, get some Tea Party limited government folks in, a few like Justin Amash out of Michigan.
Mm-hmm. Very popular right now, even among libertarians.
God damn it. So basically what you just said, they've accomplished nothing. You talk about slowing stuff down and getting back over the GOP. Come on, really? What are they going to do? They're going to pass another Patriot Act? They're going to pass CISPA now? They still can't pass a budget. It's still playing in the left-right paradigm. So I say that the Tea Party had accomplished crap. I'm going to just keep getting pissed off and shutting you down on that. So let's segue into something much more relevant and important and hard-hitting. Is we just talked about Rupert, and Rupert is all about trying to reform the prison system and this giant prison industrial complex. And that's one of his fights he's been having for, 24 years?
I think 22 with the
22.
With the mentoring program, yes.
Yeah. And so Rupert Bonham from Survivor is who we're talking about, if you don't know.
Former Indiana governor candidate.
Yep, for the Libertarian Party. He's been on Survivor, three times.
Three times.
Three times.
Won $1 million.
He was America's favorite survivor.
Ton of it to charity.
You know, he won, what was it, 34 million votes? 34 million out of 38 million for America's favorite survivor. We can only pull in 100,000 in her campaign.
Well, had we been able to, get the typical government ploy of getting dead people and everybody else across the country to vote here in Indiana, Rupert probably could have won.
Oh, yeah. If we would have cheated and stole, just like the other two parties did, yeah, we could. But we didn't. But his mentoring program, what he does is he works with basically troubled kids.
Rupert's Kids is the name of the program.
Yeah, Rupert's Kids. You can find them online. They just got a new spiffy website that's pretty awesome.
Really? I didn't
Facebook.
even know that. I haven't even checked it out.
One of our old campaign members built the website for free.
No kidding. That's beautiful.
Donations.
Good for Rupert.
Rupert'sKids.org. Free
Yes.
plug.
Yep, rupertskids.org.
Yes. And you want to talk about a good place, we talk about making sure you hit the donate button here on the Indiana Talks website. While you're out there surfing around, make sure you hit the donate button on Rupert's Kids site too.
Yeah, definitely. He's living the libertarian lifestyle and passing on to other people, self-reliance, self-sufficiency. Take responsibility for your own actions.
When you talk about Rupert Bonham, I would say that in my experiences with him, you two were a lot more heavily involved with his campaign than I was. But just in the experiences that I had with him, you want to talk about a guy that, A, as humble as they come, and B, honestly lives his life selflessly. He lives his life solely for the purpose of taking other people and lifting them up and making their lives better.
Yeah, he really is, and I talk about somebody that should be running a charity. Basically what he does is he takes troubled teens and he helps them learn skills, clean themselves up, make sure they get to their court dates, make sure they, helps them learn how to live their life legally, not getting back in the system and staying out of the system. And so he mentors them on a lot of different things and, has different projects. And he's had to fight the state, forever, pretty much. Especially after he got Survivor fame, they paid attention to him. They really started fighting him on stuff. He was a libertarian before he even found us because he hated the state. They were in his way. Yeah. He was trying to do good. They were holding him down. But that kind of segues us way under our next point is one of his campaign stump speeches and bits was legalizing hemp. And we'd never said it a lot publicly because we live in Indiana, is legalize marijuana. And not even just necessarily decriminalize, because what's that even mean? What's the difference between decriminalize and legalize? Well, well, there is
a difference, and it's probably worth pointing out. I agree. We should legalize, but decriminalizing basically takes pot and turns it into a non-jailable offense. It's a ticketable offense, like speeding.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, depending on what's going on, if you're a minor, you get caught with alcohol.
It's still
you don't
a regulated
go to jail.
substance.
You don't get arrested. You just get a ticket for it. It's still regulated. I disagree that that's a path pot should take, but it is. If you want to talk about making baby steps, it would be a better world than we're in today.
Right, but this is the kind of tie into what we also mentioned earlier is the whole Pence plan to make pot a more serious offense so we can get a lot more felons on the books. That's what we need.
This thing that Pence is trying to do with marijuana regulation, it's serious.
It's not just Pence. It's
right.
He's coming back to what our state legislatures are.
You're right.
Doing.
This is going to be this is going to pass. This is going to be law in Indiana. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's already passed the House.
Right. I think it has passed the Senate. It's in study committee, I believe, in the Senate right now.
It came out of a committee in the Senate. But like I said, it's going to pass, and that's all that really matters.
And it harshens the penalty for smaller amounts of marijuana possession.
And it's not just on marijuana. Like I said, it covers a whole plethora of laws.
Right.
And how they deal with it.
But I don't think people understand how serious he says. What he's trying to do is make it known that Indiana is a state where drug dealers won't be tolerated. Well, there's two aspects to that. First off, if you don't want drug dealers and the dangerous situations that drug dealers create, you don't make the laws harsher. You decriminalize. Drug dealers only exist because of drug laws. So this underground horrible society that you're trying to eliminate only exists because of the laws you're now trying to make harsher, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. Second, the amount of pot that Pence is trying, or that the Indiana is trying to increase these penalties on, if you know anything about marijuana at all. 1/3 of an ounce is not a ton of pot.
Well, how many? Okay, let's put that in terms of joints. How many joints is a third?
Oh, hell,
third ounce?
I don't know. You're talking. I mean, I don't know. I've never actually sat down and tried to roll it up. And I don't smoke pot.
Neither do I.
So, but
do you, Troy?
No.
But
Okay.
the point, I know that I'm around the world. I have plenty of friends that smoke pot. I've had plenty of roommates in my day that smoke pot. 1/3 of an ounce isn't a whole lot. If you think about that, the average amount that a person goes and buys is 1/8 of an ounce.
How much was in that cigar box that was found in Mitch Daniels' college dorm?
Oh, more than this. Yes.
More than 1/3 of an ounce.
Yes.
Much more?
I'm not sure whether I don't remember what the amount was, but 1/3 of an ounce. All right, so he wants this to be a felony. He wants it to be a felony to possess more than 1/3 of an ounce of marijuana. We're talking. This doesn't really break into drug dealer levels.
Yeah, so 1/3 of an
pot.
ounce.
This goes into heavy recreational use.
The interesting thing that I want to bring up on this is, as we're looking at this, go back to the debate we had in the gubernatorial race where Rupert was talking about crimes that only hurt yourself. And
Yes.
Mr. Pence, then Congressman Pence, pointed out he wanted to make Indiana a state that criminals would drive around.
Yeah, with his roadmap, right?
Yeah, well, as
Right.
we're looking at this, what exactly does a felony do to a person? Once you've got a felony on your record, anytime you go into a job interview, you're legally bound to check the yes, I have a felony box. The employer at that point is no longer bound by any equal employment rules to keep your application. It can go in the trash can at that point. Once you've got a felony on your record, when you come rent a nice little apartment like this, that is a question on the application. And if you check yes, oh, look, your application goes into the trash can again. You can be discriminated against in housing and in employment. That's what Rupert's fighting with these guys as they're coming out of the detention centers. They've got a felony or 2 or 3 because of these crimes where they hurt themselves. Maybe it's underage alcohol. Maybe it's pot. Maybe it's something harder. But at that point, we want to reform them and get them back into being a productive member of society. But where can they get a job and where can they live?
Other than in the same bad parts of town and doing the same stuff they did, it was illegal in the first place because they're a felon now. And what? Now, if you're a felon, you can't buy a gun either. So, hey, who needs gun control when you're just going to have everybody a felon, right?
Hey, that's a nice little thing.
This is going to be, I mean, when this law gets enacted, it's going to be a pretty scary world for people that, once again, like I said, they're really just regular recreational pot smokers. They have a considerable personal amount, but it's not a drug dealer's amount on hand. They keep them. They have their stash. They're not going to run out anytime soon.
And and it goes down to the simple point of how pot's not bad. How many people do you know have been under the influence of pot and wrecked and killed a family of 4? How many people do you know that went and smoked a joint and beat their kids and their wives and everything else? And so it's weird that the rest of the country's starting to kind of wake up and move forward, and we have Mike Pence getting up here, who's this old white-haired absolute piece of shit. Just, there's nothing redeemable about that little rat bastard. And he's sitting here and he wants to take us back and just act completely insane. And
it's really interesting that he's picking now as the time to do this at a point.
He's got nothing else.
Right. Well, it's at a point in time where the rest of the country and even the attitudes in Indiana are becoming very favorable towards legalization, decriminalization of marijuana.
Now, you know
and
why?
He is going the exact opposite direction.
You know why? And I'm not going to get into that because that's harder to prove or talk about. Is that we have a pretty good prison industry here. We house a lot of prisoners here, and we import prisoners, and we want to build more prisons because hey, we've got a lot of open farmland. So let's build some prisons, and the prison lobby here is pretty strong. They're pretty active here, especially in the Midwest period, because, hey, flyover country, house people's prisons here.
Right.
And then we have a state police department and local police departments that love money. They love getting more and more money, and they love their little raid units and busting people for pot and using that as an excuse in the drug war. And it's basically Indiana waking up and really being a big part of the police state in this country. Oh, we're talking about cops again. God damn it. And it's like what we saw after the Super Bowl came here. The Homeland Security moved in, and they stayed. We talked about a bill the other day where basically DHS is going to be the authority on how we see certain bills or substances and different things in this state. And so it's just kind of amazing that Mike Pence is going to basically do what Republicans do best and bring the police state down on us, and they're going to build more prisons and everything else. They've mentioned in the bill, and the people that have supported this bill have talked a little bit about how we're not going to necessarily send these people to prison. We're going to just give them long probation stretches of probation. And it's, you know how that always ends out. You do one little tiny thing wrong on probation, you're going to jail. So
this is going to be pretty long term if and when this gets passed too. This isn't the kind of thing that you'll see the next General Assembly or the first non-Pence General Assembly turning around and do away with, because at that point in time, the religious right, the cops, the prison lobby, all those people, their attitude won't be, we're going back to the pre-2013 laws, which were fine. I don't agree they're fine, but they seem to think they're fine now. The attitude will be, oh, they want to lessen drug laws.
Yeah.
I want to retroact drug laws back to what it was.
Let's see here. What was it? I can't remember what year it was. It was 1937 is really when the whole marijuana thing came up with the Marijuana Tax Act in 1937, and basically they never issued the tax stamp. And that's kind of what the drug laws have been based on when it came with pot. And then, you move on from there. But, I mean, you got the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1938, which brought in a whole bunch of regulations and bans and controls. You've got the Food and Drug Act of 1906, which was 200-something odd laws regulating substances, things like that. But the first time we banned a substance, it took a constitutional amendment. And that was, banning alcohol. And
well, that worked out pretty
prohibition,
well.
Yeah. Oh, that was, and we learned our lesson.
Crime rates stayed rather low
but
during
we
Prohibition.
learned our lesson. Now, when I can't remember,
murder rates were down during Prohibition, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, let's see here. When did they repeal? When did the 21st Amendment get passed?
I've got a Constitution on my phone. It's your friend Andy Horning's annotated version.
Oh.
I tell you what, out of respect for you, I'll open a different version.
Yes, use a different app than his, because he could just take his and roll up and smoke.
Repeal of the 18th Amendment, 1933.
Okay, so 1933 was when they repealed Prohibition. They got rid of it with a constitutional amendment. 1937 was when they passed the Marijuana Tax Act.
It's pretty interesting if you look at actually.
Did it take only 4 years to forget?
Well, you could do a whole show on Prohibition. That was an interesting beast, and the attitude of this nation and how it changed in just a very, very short number of years is a pretty interesting story. Oh, okay, found it.
Do you need to learn how to
1919, the Prohibition was ratified. The process to amending the Constitution, it's not a simple process. 2/3 of the states, blah, 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 blah. So you're talking about in 14 years, 2/3 of the states were so appalled what they had done, basically only a generation before, that they completely reversed it altogether. They saw the damage that prohibition of a product causes.
No, I don't think they really saw it. I don't know how the 21st Amendment got passed, because you look, like I said, 4 years later, and just
14.
4 years after it was the 21st
after the
was passed.
Okay.
Yeah, so a total of 18 years of period of time of just absolute horrible lessons to be learned. We go after marijuana. And then the drug war starts not too long after that, and especially it picks up in the end of the 60s and the 70s with Nixon and everybody else, and how they treat substances and how we regulate the government. And You look at what the drug war did and how it picked up and how it went and moved. Is it even worthwhile being involved in politics these days that all this crap happened back in the early 1900s and the 1920s and everything else? This stuff's been going on, and we've had the chance. Way back when was a nice simple law where there were simple things like the marijuana tax stamp or tax act. We could have just said either issue the freaking tax stamp or repeal the law. But we've let that stand, and then it's been built upon and built upon and built upon. Is there a single way ever to repeal any of this and fight the federal government? I mean, without completely dismantling it, do you think it's even possible at this point in time when people actually realistically look at what's been on the books and what's happened since the 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act and everything else? Is it even worth trying? Even worth getting involved for? Like Rand Paul. What the piss can Rand Paul do? Even if he wins the presidency, what is he going to do? Is he really going to dismantle all these laws? Really? Is it possible? Do you guys think, Troy?
But you do know that he actually talked about legalizing hemp.
But we'd still have a ban on marijuana, though, right?
I don't know. I haven't looked into how far he wanted to go with it. But at this point, as we learned with the Rupert campaign, the safe area to move into for political discourse is legalizing hemp. Don't go beyond that in your rhetoric to get elected, because you won't be able to get elected because there's too many people that let's just put them in jail. Let's keep those prisons full. They don't need to be smoking that. By the way, hand me a martini.
Oh yeah, I'm going to go get shit-faced plastered.
Right. Because we can pick and choose our intoxicants.
No, and then let me go to the doctor and get another 15 different psychotropic drugs for my 3 or 4-year-old kid, and then let me go get some drugs for my poor little putty cat.
Well, hold on. Let's get a cup of coffee first. Let's stop at Starbucks.
Oh,
an extra shot.
Yeah.
Speaking of shots, tequila.
Tequila.
Now, make it happen. Emily,
go get us some tequila, because this whole podcast has been very depressing, and I just want to burn everybody's house down.
Wait a second. Hold on. Let me get this straight. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you just said here. A, this podcast has been depressing, and B, you want to burn everyone's house down. So this is different from your normal life, Hal?
It's not. Okay, we legalize hemp. Now, with the way the government's been talking to Monsanto and all these other companies and everything else, and how they control everything with subsidies and everything else, do you think people would be allowed to just go grow any kind of hemp they wanted and just grow up that hemp and then process it however they wanted? Look at what they did with corn and ethanol subsidies and everything else. Now they controlled that market. What would you really want to go plant hemp? Because you know who's going to have control over it? Whoever controls the seeds.
Well, I love the fact that people don't even take any into consideration into what's going on with food prices today and the ethanol movement.
Oh, no. I mean, look, if you look at the history of Indiana, of all the different crops we used to grow just 40 years ago, we grew potatoes, we grew sunflowers, corn, edible corn. We grew all kinds of stuff here.
Edible corn?
Yeah, not that
What is
stuff.
that?
I don't know, the stuff they don't grind up and turn into sugar.
That's the stuff in the can at the grocery store, right?
Yeah, it comes in cans.
Okay.
It grows on the stalk
Right.
and cans.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Metal plants.
Right. The
and
combines
you know
are...
what? You know what? And just to top off the whole conversation, I guarantee you could walk into any high school right now and find probably at least 30% of the student body that doesn't have a clue how food gets in the stores.
Oh, how much of the population?
Okay, of a high school right now.
You said 30%?
30.
That doesn't have a clue.
A clue, anything.
You are lowballing the hell out of that number.
I'm not being a very good misanthrope today.
Yeah, I was going to say.
70.
75%. They don't have any idea. They have no idea how food gets to the belly.
So we're going to cover all that and everything we've talked about. It is absolutely inane to think through voting in politicians that we've got a chance in hell of changing anything, because we talked about the Tea Party and a lot of the religious voices are loud and strong, and you really can see that with the whole gay marriage thing going on right now and everything else. And hell, they talked about Medicare and Medicaid covering GCS, gender corrective surgery, or sexual reassignment surgery, for all you people that haven't read anything in the past 2 days. People are going ape shit over that, and they're using religious reasoning on that, which means they're not using their brains. And so they're just throwing out all this stuff And those people seem to be in the majority anymore. And then the people that don't agree with them don't seem to be really saying anything. And do you ever see people infighting over this religious crap in a Tea Party?
Only me and everybody else on Facebook.
There's you who come at it at a very calm, collected, very intelligent manner. Then you've got the anti-religious people. I'm not going to say atheists. I'm going to say anti-religious people just being idiots. I mean, how many people out there are like you giving actual, honest discussions to this stuff?
Very few. You'll find them in the libertarian movement, but most of the libertarian movement has given up on discussing with the Tea Party these issues of moral relevance because the libertarian movement is not interested in that side of it.
Basically, that's depressing. I've kind of lost all desire to.
You talked
continue on
about,
anything.
all right, well, you want to, all right. You mentioned.
What did I get into tonight?
Your name
what's
is
the
now
time? What's the
Mud.
time? What was the time tonight that we said before our guest said, "What in the hell have I gotten myself into?" Well, we'll do a change of topic here. You kind of
59 minutes. Sorry.
You touched on it just a hair. You talked about the attitude towards gay marriage, and our esteemed junior senator here in Indiana, Mr. Donnelly,
Donnelly
has just came out after not very long ago.
Oh,
saying
he didn't come out of the closet.
Oh, damn it. That would have been a fun story. We could have had a whole show on that one. But he has just decided to say, and it wasn't very long ago, he said he was against gay marriage. I mean, this is during his campaign. And even, I think, in a couple statements after he took office, he mentioned he was not for gay marriage. He decided that all of a sudden he did support marriage equality. He was he held a grand press conference to share. Oh, wait, no. He made a Facebook status update that said he now believed marriage equality for all. Do you buy this, or is this bullshit? I vote bullshit.
To take a cue from Penn and Teller, this is bullshit. A politician changing their stripes that quickly like that, it's just a political ploy.
It is.
That's why the whole you'll watch the whole of the Republican Party will come out in support of marriage equality in some shape and or form.
Oh, it's coming.
Just because they think it's that big of a deal, and they're buying into the same shit everyone else is buying into, where the whole marriage equality thing. And we talked about this for a whole episode last time. I'm sorry, everybody, that we're talking about it again. But is that you get lost on the equal application of law. This is just surface stuff. It's just the feel-goods. And that's what everyone's doing. And it happens with war. It happens with everything. You know, Senator Rand Paul joining up and supporting a party that has killed tens of thousands of innocent people over in the Middle East for almost no reason, joins and fully endorses and supports this party that has made that happen, and then comes out and talks out against it when the Democrats are doing it. He's the same kind of person doing the same thing. That's all any of these people ever do, is they're playing that left-right false paradigm, and no one knows. We're pretty much going to wrap it up there. We were all over the place. There was no coherency at all to this entire show.
If you're listening on Indiana Talks, make sure that you thank them for the service they're providing and all the great programming they have here by sending a little money their way. Click that donate button.
Well, and also
tag old Gary Snyder and just say thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah. Also, just listen to some of the other shows, and maybe if you know someone that's listening to a different show on Indiana Talks, maybe go smack them upside the head and tell them to listen to my show because it's better. Let's see here. Oh, Troy, thank you for coming out. I don't know.
Don't be scared to come back.
Yeah, don't be scared to come back.
It gets better with time.
Okay, plugging fuzzyliberty.com, and don't forget to hit the donate button on rupertskids.org.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, remember that. Definitely go check out Rupert's Kids on Facebook.
fuzzyliberty.com. I've not actually been there myself. I'm going to go home and check that out.
There's some great pieces on there. I've actually read some of it, and I don't like to read anybody's stuff.
Right, I didn't even know you
can read.
That's what I was going to say.
There's a Google Reader thing, and it reads words for me. Yeah, I can't read. Yeah, I can't read, guys.
Hey, and make sure you follow Maya on Facebook. She's very positive today.
Okay, yeah. So that's basically this life in a nutshell, and it needs to end quickly. This is the Uncontrollables. This is episode 6. Thank you so much for listening. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. I'm going to start doing YouTube Hangouts, Google Plus Hangouts, whatever they are called, during this recording, so you guys can watch that if you guys want to see what kind of crazy shenanigans we get into recording. Today's was horrible because we didn't do anything, but I got a new pussy cat, and it's awesome. It's Ichigo, so come check out my Facebook and like all my kitty pictures because it's a little black kitty and it's super cute. Other than that, thanks for listening. Like I said, like us on Facebook, follow Josh, follow Troy on his little battles.
At J.A. Featherstone on Twitter.
Yep. Other than that, thanks for listening.
Gay activity.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm going to go get naked and get in that gay activity.
Right? Let's take our shirts off and get sweaty.
It's real tough to talk on point with you guys.